Okay, good morning. So this is an introductory video for English 200A, Summer 1, 2020 with Professor Whitfield. We'll be working entirely remotely, as you already know, and we'll be working predominantly, if not entirely, asynchronously, meaning that I will be posting videos on a daily basis and then holding optional office hours Zoom meetings on Mondays and Wednesdays, which I'll make more clear as this video goes on. So a lot of this will come down to your ability to follow along, to make sure that you watch the videos, and to keep up with the material as it occurs. You are required to finish all of the work. The reason I don't do synchronous class meetings is because, first of all, it doesn't really work for the world I live in right now. We have no daycare, which means that I couldn't actually hold a class during that time. It would be impractical at best. The second reason is because many of my students, I have found out, have issues just accessing their computers. They have jobs. It's a difficult time. So to make this more manageable, the class material will be covered through video, and then the optional meetings will be an opportunity for you to follow up with questions and have anything else answered that you may need answered. I'll try to keep the videos to about 10 to 15 minutes. That's research shows that's about how long somebody will actually watch one. I will post everything onto Moodle, and so anytime you have a question or you need something followed up with, I will either schedule a one-on-one meeting with you through Zoom, or I will post something to the whole class to make sure that they have that information. Um, the idea, some days you'll see on the syllabus when I showed that to you that there are a lot of information videos to happen that day. Some days we won't have as many, some days you'll have plenty. A typical summer class runs Monday through Friday for an hour and 50 minutes, give or take. So we are required to, for accreditation purposes, to meet that same amount of time. So I'm going to be providing X amount of video content per day, but it won't be 2 hours worth of video content. I don't think ever. But the idea is that as you watch this, you'll be doing assignments, right? That will then that day make up for that time that we don't have. So as always, your education is your responsibility, and even more so this summer, where you have to stay on top of this and make sure that you're following the information. You will have due dates that happen, and I'll talk about those in more detail. And we only have one textbook for our class, and that's a Max Ritvo's 4 Reincarnations, which we won't really use until the end of the beginning of the third week. So everything else will be available through Moodle, through links to things online, and then through video content. My goal with this particular course in 200 this summer is to work on your specificity, to work on your skills as a writer and a critical reader, particularly and specifically of poetry. So we're going to be reading a lot of poetry. And I don't have a lot of poems for you to read. I don't give you 20 pages of reading per day. In fact, most days you'll read maybe 1-2 pages of poetry. I think one day maybe there's like a 5-page poem, but that's it. And the reason for that is that I want you to focus specifically on individual components, to learn how to go beyond the surface level reading of a poem and dive down to the depths and to understand that. And that takes time and it takes focus. And so it's better, I think, if you have 1 or 2 poems to look at than 25 pages worth. So that may sound like you're getting away with something. You don't have to do as much reading this summer. And if that's your approach, then that's your approach. But the idea behind it is actually, yes, read less, but read deeper. And that's something I'm going to try to show you and to give you examples of through videos and through assignments where I have example essays. We go and do that one. So we're not going to write a ton either, right? We're not going to write a 12-page research paper at the end of this. Instead, we're writing smaller prompts and working on really making sure that our sentences that make sense, our paragraphs are clean and they develop naturally. And I'd rather you have that understanding, because I think that's more beneficial in the long run than just like churning out 12 pages where a lot of it's not really doing much for you and it's a lot of drivel instead of really focused, intelligent pages, which is what we're going to try to work on. We're going to read poetry, not necessarily in any geographical order. We're reading it more about its use of poetics, which we're going to talk about through every day. Most of the videos I have will be a discussion of the poems, right, where I'll try to walk us through them. And then there will also be videos that are more about the component parts of being a better writer. So things about how to conduct proper research, how to create a thesis statement, what is a topic sentence. So I want you to be better at both. The hope is twofold, right? The first thing is to increase your abilities as a critical writer and a critical thinker. I mean, this is key right now, especially in our world that we live in at the moment. We need to be critical. We need to pay attention to what we're doing. We live in an information overload society. It's tons of content all day. And if we're not careful, we're going to have people convincing us of things that aren't real. And we're not, because we don't have the critical attention to know what kinds of questions to even ask. I highly recommend listening to the podcast called Rabbit Hole, which takes this basic approach and says what happens when you're overloaded with content and you're not taking critical lens to it, right? What can happen to you? And it's an excellent podcast and really worth your time, and apt for what's happening in the world today, quite literally today. So that's the idea here. Let's make you a stronger writer. Let's make you a better reader. But that's over there, right? The other side of this is something that I hope comes across in the format of this particular course, which is I just want you to maybe like poetry, right? Or not to hate it. I want you to know that poetry is this beautiful expression of self that pre-exists any sort of academic ownership of it, that it has been and will continue to be an expression of humanity through all cultures and all time, that has been written as an attempt to understand the self and to understand the self's place in the human condition, which is the subcategory of my course. I always call it, the human condition, to think about what it is to be a person. And there's a lot of people out there, and I think this is a good point to make early on in a semester, because most of my students in English 200 are typically going to go into a field that's not in the humanities, right? So typically you're going to go into more of like a business field, science field, maybe computer science, accounting, right? Bio is a pretty, as you all know, a big major through Wofford College, so that you can become doctors and dentists and lawyers and, people who make money fundamentally. And there's always this question of like, why do we have to take a class on poetry if what I want to do is extract molars? And that's a great question and a fair question. And my answer to that is very simply, if you've ever gone to the doctor, okay? When I go to the doctor, I don't go to the doctor because I'm sick. I go to the doctor because I'm scared of my sickness. I don't go to the dentist because my tooth hurts. I go to the dentist because I'm scared that my tooth is hurting and I don't know what to do. So when I go into that doctor's office, that dentist's office, that lawyer's office, that computer scientist's office, when I go into their offices and I share my fear, the doctors who just treat me as a biologist, who just see me as like a thing that has component parts that break and then fix that doesn't make me feel any better. I wish I wouldn't have gone. But the doctor who can sit down and say, like, what is your fear? Where is your fear? How do you feel as a human being? That's what I want to try and do, right? So the goal of a class like this is to try and find a way to have you become more complete as a human being. And poetry can help us do that. Like, as art has always shown us, it can help us do that. So that's the big picture stuff. That's where I want us to get at. And the smaller stuff is, hey, let's look closely at poetry. Let's make sure we can understand how to read closely, conduct analysis, conduct good research, understand how do we find good facts, how do we incorporate interesting facts, and how do I write with a clear critical sense. I'm gonna take 2 seconds here at the end to talk a little bit about etiquette in a course like this, and then I'll stop this video, start a new one that goes over the syllabus and some of the assignments. So Zoom etiquette. Basically, you need to make sure that if you're going to meet with me through Zoom, that you treat it as an interaction that you would have in my office, okay? Last semester, we had a couple of students, not in my classes, but other classes, where people were coming in like shirtless. I don't get it. One person was like working out during the video, which is strange to me, but treat it like a professional setting, right? I know that I'm wearing a bandana. I decided that was my quarantine look. I'm not stopping until this pandemic is over. So, make sure you're present, make sure you're here, okay? That's your goal, that's your responsibility. So make sure you keep Zoom etiquette, treat it well, treat it right, make sure that you're doing what you need to do. Other than that, I hope it's a fun class for you. Everything's going through Moodle, and the last thing I wanna say before I stop this video is, you need to know that Moodle is, there's no privacy on Moodle. I can see what you access. I can see when you access it. I can see how long you access it. You need to know that about every class you take at Wofford, that Moodle is something that has no privacy. So when I give assignments, everything going through Moodle, if you don't fulfill a requirement on the assignment, the first thing I'm going to go do is see, did you ever download the assignment sheet? Did you look at any of the videos that I linked you to? And if the answer is no, then I have no sympathy for you. So make sure that you are aware that what you have to do is on your end. You have to follow through with these things. So that's most of my pitch. If you have any questions about any video at any time, email me and we'll contact one another. The next video will be on the syllabus and assignments, and there'll be a few more after that. So it's good to meet y'all.